The ZSU-23-4 Shilka, a self-propelled anti-aircraft system that has left a terrifying mark on the battlefield from the Soviet-Afghan War all the way to the Syrian Civil War. Originating from the banks of the Shilka River in Russia, this impressive machine earned its moniker choice for a good reason, with 4 rapid-fire 23mm cannons which basically release a storm of devastation and destruction upon its targets. But the history of this menace of air defense wasn't without its trials and tribulations, as its predecessor, the ZSU-57-2, struggled with accuracy and mobility. Today, we're going to take a look at the Shilka's history, its pivotal role in conflicts spanning from the Yom Kippur War to the Soviet-Afghan War, and the genius solutions that turned this SPAA into an icon of Soviet military might. Hello and welcome to the Bobi and Tanks YouTube channel, and enjoy this video. Now first of all, let's take a look at the name of the Shilka itself. The acronym ZSU stands for Zenitnaya Samohodnaya Ustanovka, which is Russian for Anti-Aircraft Self-Propelled System. The 23 indicates the 23mm bore diameter, and the 4 indicates that it has 4 gun barrels. This system is named after the Shilka River in Russia. Afghan soldiers named it the Syrian machine because of the sound its cannons make when firing. It is also called ZOIS, which comes from the Russian acronym. Before the ZSU-23-4, the Soviets had its predecessor, which was the ZSU-57-2. This beast was armed with 2 massive 57mm autocannons, and it used a pretty basic system for aiming and relied on optical tracking and lead calculation. Despite its powerful cannons, the ZSU-57-2 wasn't exactly a hit. Its larger caliber meant it would take up more space and therefore could only carry 300 rounds, and without radar, hitting targets was more difficult. On top of that, it couldn't fire on the move because of lack of a stabilizer. As we see in War Thunder, the ZSU-57-2 is more of a menace around ground vehicles than actual aircrafts. While it was quite obvious that the ZSU-57-2 wasn't really a very capable SPAA because it lacked accuracy and surge and track radar. That's why in 1957 the development of the ZSU-23-4 Shilka began alongside the ZSU-37-2 Yenisei. Interestingly, the Yenisei was built on a modified Su-100P tank destroyer chassis. The Shilka entered service in 1965, replacing all ZSU-57-2s in air defense units by the early 1970s. The Shilka was designed to provide anti-aircraft defense for military facilities, troops, and mechanized columns on the move up to an altitude of 1500 meters. The Yenisei was intended to protect tank divisions and regiments, engaging targets up to 3000 meters. During trials, the Yenisei demonstrated the ability to fire while moving at speeds of up to 25 km an hour on flat terrain. Its 37mm 2A12 gun was also notably more accurate, with 2.5 times the accuracy of the ZSU-57-2. After these trials, the Yenisei was reassigned to protect the 2K11 Krog and 2K12 Kub SAM systems from close-range attacks that fell within the missile launcher's dead zones. Despite its promising performance, the Council of Ministers decided on September 5, 1962 to only accept the Shilka into service because of its commonality and practicality. Consequently, all work on the Yenisei was halted shortly after. Initially, tank regiments were supposed to have an anti-aircraft artillery battalion of Shilkas consisting of 2 batteries with 4 Shilkas each. By the late 1960s, 1 battery was equipped with Shilkas while the other still used ZSU-57-2s. Standard aircraft batteries in motorized rifle and tank regiments later included 2 platoons, one with 4 Shilkas and one with 4 mobile surface-to-air missile systems, either the 9K31 Strela 1 or 9K35 Strela 10. The Shilka combined a proven radar system with a non-amphibious chassis based on the GM575 tracked vehicle and 4 23mm autocannons. This blend of mobility, heavy firepower and accuracy made it a formidable anti-aircraft system. It outclassed all NATO aircraft guns at the time and is still considered a significant threat to low-flying fixed-wing aircraft and helicopters. The Shilka was a big hit among Warsaw Pact countries and other Soviet allies. Out of the 6,500 units produced, about 2,500 were shipped off to 23 different countries. You could say the Shilka was the Soviet Union's greatest export, right up there with vodka and nesting dolls. Even today, the successor states of the Warsaw Pact are still cranking out versions of this classic. Notably, Ukraine has its Donetsk variant and Poland offers the Biala. The legacy of the Shilka lives on, proving that sometimes old-school tech just can't be beaten or can be used in one way or another, including non-air defense operations. Just like this Syrian army-operated Shilka here spraying rebels with its insane rate of fire, or this Ukrainian Shilka firing at Russian ground targets. The Shilka has seen plenty of action over the years. It was used in the Yom Kippur War in 1973, various Arab-Israeli conflicts, the Iran-Iraq War, and the First Gulf War in 1990. During the Yom Kippur War, it proved especially deadly against the Israeli Air Force. Israeli pilots trying to fly low to avoid Syrian SA-6 missiles found themselves easy targets for the ZSU-23-4s as seen in Operation Dugman 5, in which the Israeli Air Force tried to destroy all Syrian surface-to-air missile batteries on the Golan Front by using unguided general-use bombs dropped from a medium altitude near the targets. But the outcome of this operation was catastrophic for the Israelis. 6 F-4 Phantom aircraft were lost over Syria and several others were damaged but returned to the Ramat David Air Base in Israel. Most of the damaged aircraft were hit by the ZSU-23-4 air defense artillery guns, which were especially deadly due to the sortie's very low altitude. 2 crewmen were killed and 9 captured by the Syrians for the destruction of but a single Syrian SAM battery. Besides the Yom Kippur War, in the Soviet-Afghan War, the Shilka was widely used against Mujahideen positions in the mountains. Its guns could elevate much higher than those on BMPs, BTRs, T-55s and T-62s, making it particularly effective in that terrain. The ZSU-23-4 even played a role in the initial coup in Kabul, helping to suppress defensive positions around the presidential palace. The Russian army later used it for mountain combat in Chechnya. Let's take a look at the guns and the turret of the Shilka. Each water-cooled 23mm 2A7 autocannon has a firing rate of 850 to 1000 rounds per minute, giving the entire system a combined rate of 3400 to 4000 rounds per minute. This means it can continuously fire for about 30 to 35 seconds before running out of ammo, though in reality, practical constraints like barrel overheating come into play. The Shilka has an ammo capacity of 2000 rounds stowed aboard. The turret, welded for durability, has a raised ring from a T-54 medium tank with a diameter of 1840mm or 6 feet. This 360-degree rotating turret is fully stabilized, allowing it to fire accurately even while moving. The turret rotation and cannon elevation mechanisms are both fast and precise, driven by reliable hydraulic systems. When targeting ground targets, manual aiming is used. The quad-automatic anti-aircraft gun AZP-23 Amur can elevate from -4 to +85 degrees. An armored plate inside the turret protects the crew from gunfire and explosive gases during intense shooting sessions. But with this great anti-air system and crazily high rate of fire to shred apart enemies, there were also a few problems that came with it. Early versions of the Shilka had a bit of a hot head problem. When the guns were fired for too long, they would get so hot that the rounds in the chamber would cook off. This means they would fire on their own without the operator pulling the trigger, causing the gun to keep shooting until the whole ammo belt was empty. Sometimes the barrel got so overheated that they would jam or even break off the vehicle, which was less than ideal. This runaway gun issue made the early Shilkas dangerous not just for enemies but for anyone standing nearby, including friendly troops. Soviet soldiers quickly learned to give these Fury machines plenty of space. The advice was to avoid continuous firing, no bursts longer than 15 seconds, until they fixed the cooling system. The problem was eventually solved in the ZSU-23-4M model by replacing the welded coolant tubes with flexible pipes. Once this upgrade was in place, the autocannons became much more reliable and less prone to outbursts of rage. Now lastly for today's video, let's look at how the Shilka is deployed during combat. The Shilka isn't exactly a tank in terms of armor protection. Its thin armor, no thicker than 50mm, makes it highly vulnerable to enemy anti-tank missiles, cannons and heavy machine guns. On top of that, its wheels, tracks, radar and gun barrel are all pretty exposed and can be easily damaged in battle. In combat scenarios, Shilkas are usually stationed near the front lines but just behind enemy forces. When defending, they are typically positioned 600 to 1000 meters behind the objectives. On the offensive, they stay about 400 to 600 meters behind the leading tanks. When moving, these SPAs are evenly distributed along the troop columns to provide balanced air defense coverage. Back in the day, each Shilka kind of did its own thing in combat, basically just winging it without much guidance or target marking from regimental or regional air defense. But in 1978, things got a bit more organized with the introduction of the PPRU-1, also known as the Ovod MSV. It's based on an MTLBU armored tracked chassis, and its main job is to keep an eye on motor rifle or tank regimental anti-aircraft units equipped with Shilka SPAs and 9K31 Strela 1M mobile surface-to-air missile systems. This PPRU-1 isn't just any vehicle, it's equipped with a Look 23 radar and an automatic fire control system that's all linked up with the divisional air defense system. Think of it as the ultimate air defense coordinator, making sure everyone's on the same page and ready to take down anything that comes their way. The 4 automatic guns on the Shilka are actually pretty handy against low-flying planes and not so tough lightly armored ground targets. That's why you will find these bad boys popping up in places like Afghanistan, Abkhazia, Chechnya, Syria and Lebanon. This is primarily because the guns can elevate much higher than a tank or APC cannon, enabling armored units equipped with ZSU-23-4s to return fire against ambushes from above. Believe it or not, there are still a few Shilka SPAs kicking around in the Russian naval infantry, specifically in the 61st Brigade of the Northern Fleet, the 336th Brigade of the Baltic Fleet, and the 155th Brigade of the Pacific Fleet are all hanging onto these trusty machines. Who would have expected these rather old SPAs to stay in service even until today? That's a question you can answer and discuss in the comments below. But for today, that was all I had to say. I hope you enjoyed it. If you think I said anything that is not right or you think I should have added any additional information to this video, please let me know in the comments and share your knowledge. Besides that, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.